In this video, we'll have a look at the optimized graphics settings for playing Arc Ascended on the GeForce RTX 3060, 4060, 4060 Mobile, 5050, 5060, 4070 Super, 4070 Ti, and the 5070. We'll also investigate the various visual artifacts this game suffers from, including excessive shadow flickering, occlusion, and noisy GI/reflection. Arc Ascended at 1440p with DLSS balanced upscaling and epic quality graphics settings averages a measly 30 FPS on the 4070 Super. You'll need to reduce the advanced graphics settings to high. View distance we're setting to low because this is a fairly old CPU. Reflections work best at high or medium. General shadows and global illumination at high. Post-processing doesn't make much of a difference. Effects at low, and foliage makes a pretty substantial difference. Reducing it below epic reduces the density of rocks, pebbles, and ground vegetation, but it performs ideally at medium, so that's what we're going with. With these tweaks, we're getting around 40 to 45 FPS. You'll further need to reduce the foliage interaction distance multiplier to 0.5 or 0.6. It works best between 0.5 to 1. It sets the distance at which the physics interactions with plants and other vegetation works. There are two engine level tweaks we'll be using to push the performance consistently above 55 FPS so that we can use FrameGen for a more stable experience. For starters, we'll disable volumetric clouds for a massive 10 to 20% performance boost. Second, we're reducing the nanite complexity to 4 pixels per edge. This gives us another 5 to 6% performance boost. With these settings, we're averaging around 60 FPS in even the most densely populated vegetation areas of the game. FrameGen gives us more headroom to play with. You can either increase the view distance and foliage quality or just enjoy 100 plus FPS on a 120 to 140 Hz monitor. The same settings on the RTX 5060, but with performance upscaling at 1440p, delivers a fairly consistent 50 to 60 FPS experience. You can pair that with FrameGen to get around 90 to 100 FPS with decent stability. The RTX 4060 desktop GPU requires FrameGen in addition to performance mode upscaling for decent 60 plus frame rates at 1440p, with effects and foliage both best set to low. For 1080p, you can use the same settings as the 5060 and the 4070 Super, but with balanced upscaling. If you're playing on an RTX 3060 or 4060 mobile laptop, then apart from all the previous tweaks, you'll also need to disable Lumen for playable frame rates of around 50 to 55 FPS. Even then, we recommend FrameGen for a more stable experience. As you can see, SSGI, the replacement for Lumen, produces pretty unbearable flickering and artifacting. Hence, I recommend enabling FrameGen and then switching back to Lumen with some tweaks I'll show you. With FrameGen enabled, Lumen renders around 80 to 85 FPS, which is quite playable and enjoyable in a game like Ark. Now, for the I recommend two more engine level tweaks for a smoother experience. Disable HZB traversal, which is essentially Lumen's screen space tracing for diffuse illumination. It reduces the quality of bounce lighting for vegetation, but can improve performance and reduce flickering. Second, set the max ray intensity to 1. This further reduces the noise and the flickering that you see with the foliage. Arc Ascended suffers from severe shadow-related flickering, which is a result of the virtual shadows used by UE5. You can disable those by entering this command or entering it into the engine.ini file, but beware that this will actually reduce the performance a bit instead of improving it. You might have noticed these pitch black shadows in the foliage in Arc Ascended. This is because of Lumen, which uses distance field tracing, which isn't quite sufficient to trace these hard to reach areas. It also relies on a fair bit of temporal accumulation and previous frame data reusing, which is one of the reasons why you'll see a lot of ghosting with respect to the lighting. There's no way to get rid of this apart from completely disabling Lumen. You might have noticed some off-screen low-quality pixelated reflections conflicting with screen-space reflections on the bodies of rivers and lakes. This is also because of Lumen reflections to be specific. You can safely disable it while leaving Lumen GI intact. With this tweak, specular lighting or reflections fall back to screen space reflections or SSR, which is more stable but doesn't cover off-screen objects.